I think how okay people will be with the Steam Machine's price will largely depend on what their expectations are of this machine and what they're hoping it will do. If you're in the camp of the Steam Machine being something that competes with consoles, if that's what you want this to do, then you may end up disappointed by the price point of the Steam Machine. Whereas if you see the Steam Machine as a device that is intended to make PC gaming a lot more accessible and be competitive in that space, then you might be okay with where it's priced. Now, a few days ago in this video titled, "We Need to Talk About Steam Machine's Potential Price," I talked about everything we know so far in terms of what Valve has said and what speculation currently is at. Since then, we've seen Valve engage in another interview with the Frames Per Second podcast, and what they've relayed basically is in line with the likelihood that the Steam Machine will be priced more like a PC and that its intention isn't really to compete with consoles aggressively in the way that traditional consoles subsidize itself and lower the cost of the device, of the console, so that they're able to make up for the cost through software sales, especially those first-party exclusives, which a PC doesn't have as much leeway on that front. But before we get to that, here's what expectations look like when it comes to what enthusiasts are expecting the Steam Machine to be priced at. From 65,000 voters, the majority are hoping that the Steam Machine will compete with consoles and price itself at roughly $500. That's over half of the people who took this survey. And then you've got about 30% of folks who are saying they'd be okay paying $800 for this machine. So you've got roughly 50% of folks who know about the Steam Machine who want this to be priced in a way where it can compete with consoles, and about 30% who are okay with this being more competitive in the PC landscape and it being a device that makes PC gaming more accessible and just a lot more convenient, even if it means being priced closer to a PC than a traditional console. And then in terms of what Valve has said and the expectations that they've set already, when asked by IGN about affordability, they've said that if you're trying to make a PC that has similar features and similar performance, I think the Steam Machine is going to be a really competitive price to that and provide really good value to it. So they're very value conscious when it comes to similar priced PCs and trying to be lower price point than if you were to build out a similarly spec'd PC separately. But as far as consoles are concerned, that's not an area that they're really concerned with. Linus Tech Tips relayed that when speaking to Valve, what he was told was that the Steam Machine would be priced more like a PC than a console. And then in a follow-up video during a podcast episode, Linus Tech Tips relayed that when he proposed that he'd love for this Steam Machine to be priced competitively with consoles, and when asked by Valve, what he thinks it should be priced at, and he said, well, $500, apparently nobody said anything, but the energy of the room wasn't great. With Linus Tech Tips believing that at the specs of the Steam Machine, a CPU and GPU that's in line with the 7600 AMD series, and with only 8 gigs of VRAM, it'd be better for Valve to take some losses on the Steam Machine so that they can try to attract new folks to PC gaming, to the Steam environment, and make up for the losses in hardware through software sales, which they get 30% cut off with every game sold on Steam. But that is looking very unlikely. Valve intends to sell the Steam Machine seemingly at some kind of profit, and they are not aiming to subsidize the machine in the way traditional consoles do. And this was further affirmed in the Frames Per Second podcast episode here, where they spoke to Valve, and here's what Valve had to say when it comes to price point.
So then obviously that question becomes like, okay, well, where does the price land? I know you haven't announced a price yet, but I mean, can you give us any information about what consumers might expect in this regard?
I think that if you build a PC from parts and get to basically the same level of performance, that's the general price window that we aim to be at.
Okay.
Ideally, we'd be pretty competitive with that and have a pretty good deal, but we're working on refining that as we speak. And right now is just a hard time to have a really good idea of what the price is going to be, because there's a lot of different things that are fluctuating.
A lot of external factors that are
absolutely So but it's not going to be a sort of subsidized device. Like Valve's not going into this thinking we're going to eat a big loss on this so that we can grow market like share or category or anything like that, correct?
No, it's more in line with what you might expect from the current PC market. Yeah.
Okay.
Obviously, our goal is for it to be a good deal at that level of performance, and then you have features that are actually really hard to build if you're making your own gaming PC from parts, right? Like things like, well, I mean, obviously the small form factor and I think the noise level that we achieved or lack thereof is really impressive, and we're excited that the people are going to find out how quiet this thing is.
Yeah.
But also some integration features like HDMI CEC, right? Like being able to turn on your TV, turn off your TV, change the control it with your TV remote, change the volume, all that kind of stuff. Like the Bluetooth and wireless work that we've done, the 4 antennas, the like very deliberate design to make sure that you can have a great experience with 4 Bluetooth controllers from any manufacturer, plus our Steam controller receiver integrated as well. Like that's all hard to do, but more importantly, you can turn on the machine from your controller, right? Which is not something that's actually straightforward depending on the type of PC you have or the main chipset and all that. So like being able to sit down on your couch, press one button on your controller, and the whole thing lights up like you'd expect for a thing that's in your living room, I think that's very valuable. And there's not really a price point to that because it's not really something that exists in the PC market right now. And so I think there's people that are going to be perfectly happy building their PC at whatever level of spec, and that's going to be a great experience for them. I think we're building SteamOS so that if they want to use it for that, they can, and they can have essentially the same experience. And if they're happy with that, that's perfectly good with us. But we expect the machine is a nice baseline offering that lets you have some features that are really hard to get to otherwise.
And part of the, like, for me, one of the benefits of Steam Machine is I'm someone who used to build my PC in college, and I am too old and tired to do that now. So I would like to have a nice PC that I can
feel that. I feel that.
So there you have it. I mean, that's as clear cut as a response can be when it comes to where we can expect the price point of the Steam Machine to sit at. It will be competitive with similarly spec'd PCs that don't subsidize its hardware, and not going to be priced competitively with subsidized traditional consoles. Valve has already put out there the statistics that the Steam Machine's performance beats 70% of PCs, because the vast majority of PC gamers don't have those enthusiast powerhouses of PCs that can output, 4K, 120 FPS and whatnot. The market of PC gamers who have those super spec'd out PCs is significantly smaller than those who just buy something that can play PC games well enough while being reasonably affordable. And so that's the market that Valve is trying to hit with the Steam Machine. And that's why they chose the following specs that are roughly in the area of a lower powered RX 7600 or a notch below the RTX 4060, which will not be able to play every single game at 4K, but if you tweak the specs, you can likely achieve really good performance and can still ultimately play modern games at reasonable resolution with reasonable frame rates. But beyond affordability, accessibility is the big selling point of the Steam Machine. It's the fact that it's got some of those console features that makes it very convenient for you to just be able to press a button, turn it on, and everything lights up like you'd expect, as Valve itself said. Because if you buy a traditional PC or build out a traditional PC, you don't get that right out of the box plug and play experience where everything works as you would expect like a console to work. A lot of PCs don't have that functionality, and even me, as someone who has PC set up in my living room so we can play PC games, there is a bit of a setup process involved, and it's a kind of process that is just not something that will make PC gaming appealing to your average Joe. And there's also the fact that the Steam Machine is of a significantly lower profile when it comes to how much space it takes up than, the gaming laptops that I've set up in my living room. There's the fact that I won't hear its fans blaring, which is kind of a bit of an inconvenience with gaming laptops. And a lot of folks who've gotten hands-on with the Steam Machine have talked about how quiet this thing is. It just takes up a lot less room. It's a lot easier to set up. It's a lot easier to take with you. And I know those sound like little things, but you'd be shocked by how much little conveniences make it more likely that someone will find something more appealing or make it more likely that they'll use the thing. All these friction points do add up and make people go, I don't want to engage with that. I don't want to go through the trouble just to be able to play games. And so when you remove all of those friction points, it just makes it a lot more of a seamless part of your day-to-day life, of your living room experience. And that's a lot more valuable than you might think, especially for those who are not tech enthusiasts, who don't know how to do all the tweaking and the tinkering and just want to be able to press a button and be right in. Something like a Steam Machine, once you've got it set up once, it's very easy to get into your PC gaming library because of the way they've built this machine to kind of almost function like a console, even if at the end of the day, it is a PC. And yeah, this is something that is actually unique to Steam Machine. If you take any other PC and plug it in through your TV, getting into the PC is just a hassle. Like with the laptops that I have to like log into Windows, I have to like use Face ID, I have to go up to the laptop and show my face or type in a PIN code, and I can't use my controller to do it. And I'm sure there are ways to set things up that way, but you actually have to set it up and go through that trouble. Whereas the Steam Machine, right out of the box, comes with all of those conveniences. It already comes with the user experience built in instead of it being something you have to kind of tinker with and set up. The user experience is akin to a console, but what you're ultimately getting with the machine is a PC that isn't subsidized and that doesn't have, like exclusive games attached to it. And I think there is more value to that ease of use being built in, the user experience being smooth and seamless than people give this machine credit for. But from a pure value proposition standpoint, when you look at traditional consoles and the fact that a PS5 Pro is $750 and the Steam Machine being more in line with a base PS5 that costs, like $500. And right now for the holiday season, PlayStation 5 cut the price of PS5 Pro and PS5 base, the digital edition, and the one with the disc drive by $100. So PS5 Pro is now $650 instead of $750. PS5 digital edition 825 gigabytes is $400 instead of $500. From a pure value standpoint, without the subsidization that traditional consoles have, yeah, Steam Machine's value just doesn't look good by comparison. But again, that ultimately isn't Valve's goal to kind of delve and compete in that market. Not in the way that a lot of people were hoping the Steam Machine would do by pricing it closer to like that $500 mark, which would make a lot of people look at what's available right now. Do I get a Switch? Do I get a PlayStation? Or do I get a Steam Machine? And they could very reasonably be like, well, I feel like with the Steam Machine, I get the best of most worlds. That $500 price point would have been like without question, I'll get a Steam Machine. But at $700, $800, it'll give people a bit more pause about whether it is actually something they want to buy or they need. Whether it isn't better to just get a Nintendo Switch 2 or to just get a PlayStation 5 or a PlayStation 5 Pro, or to continue using the more powerful PCs that they already have, or just buy a PC or just upgrade their current PC. But I think the idea of very easy plug and play living room PC gaming experience with all of your inputs thanks to that Steam controller, that proposition of a seamless user experience in the living room for PC gaming, there is appeal to that. Like for me personally, the Steam Machine quite literally solves every issue and qualm I have with my current PC gaming living room setup. Now, from a gaming PC landscape standpoint, if you look at where prices are sitting at for equivalent devices, so right here, IGN used a PC part picker to build a similarly spec'd PC, and they came to around $913 at the time of writing. I think that in comparison to something like that, the Steam Machine will be priced lower and also likely include a controller. Valve has already said that they do have bundles that don't or do include controllers. Now, a similarly spec'd laptop is closer to $780, and with a Steam Machine sitting somewhere between those two when it comes to performance, it is not quite a full desktop tower PC. It's not quite as small as a laptop. It is a small form factor that has some breathing room, and so its performance will sit in between, and its specs and its components are somewhere in between. The true value of the Steam Machine will likely be somewhere between $900 and $700. And then if they're trying to be competitive in that landscape, I think a price point of $700 is a strong possibility, though I can also see the Steam Machine delving into the $800 region. But at this point, that's a foregone conclusion. It will not be $500, and that's something that has to be accepted in the sense of like you can't keep hoping that the Steam Machine will be $500 because you'll be disappointed. We have to carry on and move forward with the knowledge that the Steam Machine's price will likely be $700 to $800 for the base model with 512 gigabytes. Hopefully, that includes a controller. And then on the upper range with a 2 terabyte version, it'll likely be, like $1,000, like $999 for those who want that kind of internal storage. Maybe a little less than that, maybe $900 for the 2 terabyte version would be a little more ideal. Though the nice thing about the Steam Machine is that if you get the 512 gigabyte version, you can get whatever storage size SSD you want and very easily replace it with the existing one if you're an enthusiast and a tinkerer who likes to do that kind of stuff. Again, I think the inclusion of a controller will add significant value because when you buy a PC, you don't get a controller. And the Steam controller here is very capable. And the fact that you're able to automatically connect it with your Steam machine because the antenna that connects to the Steam controller is already installed and all these things. Again, the convenience is where the Steam machine is hoping it will have a lead on other similarly spec'd PCs, combined with it being competitively priced in that region. By PC gaming standards, they're hoping that the Steam machine will be the most cost-effective, the most accessible, the most convenient, with the least amount of friction points. But yeah, Daniel Ahmad here, a veteran analyst in the games industry, put it best: tariffs, surging memory / storage costs, supply chain volatility, and an inability to subsidize to the same extent as traditional console manufacturers are all working against Valve at the moment. And it's also worth highlighting that recently it was reported that AMD chips are about to get more expensive to manufacture because of the fact that AI has been eating up so much of the demand of AMD chips. And with AMD being what's powering the Steam machine, that also might be a potential cost consideration for that device. And another consideration is, again, the Steam Deck is priced at, like $550 for the 512 gigabyte OLED version and $650 for the 1 terabyte version. I personally never thought that the Steam machine will be priced at similar or lower price than the Steam Deck. So for my part, I was just already expecting the Steam machine to be priced in the $700 to $800 range at the base price point. But at the same time, I do understand why some people might be disappointed. You've got tweets like these saying, initially they thought, oh my God, if this can be priced at $400 or $500, then it's going to wreck the competition, especially in the console market. And now finding out that it is more likely that it's going to be, somewhere between $700 to $900. Pricing this at that price point is going to be a major miss, says this one individual. I'm sure it'll sell and have fans, but with those specs, it won't be competing with other consoles. It won't disrupt the gaming market as a whole in the way that people were hoping the Steam machine would. But that was just not the intention with Valve and this device. And so yeah, just additional confirmation for anyone that was hoping that the Steam machine would be, $500, $600. I would temper your expectations. Just wanted to put this out there so that you are more informed going forward instead of really keeping your hopes up and then being really disappointed when the final price is announced, because I can almost guarantee you it will not be $500. And yeah, everyone will have their individual thoughts on that front. But I'd love to hear what your thoughts and opinions are on the likelihood that the Steam machine will be priced, at the base price point somewhere in the region of $700, $800. Do you find that price point reasonable based on what Valve is saying about the goals with a Steam machine being competitive with similarly spec'd PCs and being more accessible and having a better user experience, more console-like than your traditional PCs? Or was, like a $500, $600 price point paramount for the Steam machine to seem appealing, based on the fact that its specs are not even as powerful as the PS5 Pro, more in line with base PS5, which costs significantly less than what the Steam machine will cost? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.